Today's topic is ascites. It is defined as accumulation of free fluid in the peritoneal cavity. Small amounts of ascites are asymptomatic. The pathogenesis: ascites in liver disease is secondary to renal, sodium and water retention. Several factors are involved. Number one is the sodium and water retention results from peripheral arterial vasodilatation and consequent reduction in the blood volume. Nitric oxide acts as vasodilator. Portal hypertension exerts a local hydrostatic pressure and leads to increased hepatic and splenic production of lymph and transudation of fluid into the peritoneal cavity. Low serum albumin, a consequence of poor synthetic liver function, may further contribute by a reduction in plasma oncotic pressure. Here if we see the pathogenesis of ascites over the right side, the pictures show that is cirrhosis leading to the portal hypertension, then reduced albumin because of the function of the liver, decreased oncotic pressure and transudation of the fluid. And over the right side, reduced aldosterone metabolism leading to the aldosterone, and there is activation of the renin-angiotensin system and causing the retention of the salt and water retention. So splenic vasodilatation mediated by the nitric oxide leads to fall in systemic arterial pressure. This leads to the activation of the renin-angiotensin system. So there is secondary aldosteronism, increased sympathetic nervous activity, increased arterial natriuretic hormone secretion and altered activity of the kallikrein-kinin system. Tend to normalize the arterial pressure but produce salt and water retention from the renal side, and combination of some splenic arterial vasodilatation and portal hypertension alters the intestinal capillary permeability, promoting accumulation of fluid within peritoneum. If you see the causes of the ascites can be divided into exudative, having the low serum ascites albumin gradient, or transudative, that having the high serum ascites albumin gradient. Exudative common causes are malignant disease, hepatic or peritoneal. Other causes include the acute pancreatitis, lymphatic obstruction, infection like tuberculosis, nephrotic syndrome and hypothyroidism. Transudative causes are the cardiac failure, hepatic cirrhosis, hypoproteinemia, protein losing enteropathy and the malnutrition, hepatic venous occlusion like Budd-Chiari syndrome and sinusoidal obstruction syndrome, veno-occlusive disease, Meek syndrome and constrict pericarditis. Clinical features: the abdominal swelling associated with ascites develop over days or weeks. Mild generalized abdominal pain and discomfort are common, but if severe should raise the suspicion of the spontaneous bacterial peritonitis. Respiratory distress accompanies tense ascites and also causes difficulty in eating. On examination, abdominal distension with fullness in the flanks on inspection, shifting dullness or percussion, and when ascites is marked, a fluid thrill or fluid wave can be elicited. Other features: eversion of umbilicus, hernia, abdominal stria, divarication of recti and scrotal edema. Dilated superficial abdominal veins may be seen around the umbilicus, that is called as the caput medusae. Many patients also have peripheral edema. A pleural effusion, usually on the right side, may infrequently be found and arises from the passage of ascitic fluid through congenital diaphragmatic defects. Here if you see the ascites with umbilical hernia over the right side, left side, and over the right side there is ascites with dilated vessels. Here the shifting dullness, the percussion from the midline out to the left flank until dullness is reached. Mark this point and ask the patient to roll towards you. Wait for 30 seconds, then repeat percussion again. If the dull area becomes resonant, is indicated of ascites, and this is called as shifting dullness. And over the right side you see the acid fluid thrill. Here we place the hand over the midline, and then we place a hand over one side and tap over the other side, and there is a wave like feeling over the left side of the hand can be felt. Investigations. Ultrasonography, best mean of detecting ascites, particularly in the obese and those with small volumes of fluid. X-ray, it shows the pleural effusion. When we do the chest X-ray in about 10% of the patients, usually on the right side, and mostly small but occasionally a massive hydrothorax occurs. And on abdominal X-ray in erect position, ascites may be seen as an haziness, as shown on the picture on the lower right side. Paracentesis, used for confirmation of the ascitic fluid and analysis. Here, when we get the fluid, we see the appearance of the ascitic fluid, cell count, gram staining, and culture, protein, cytology, and amylase level. Gross appearance, if we see over the right side, the picture shows the straw colored normal or in transliterated like in hepatic cirrhosis, blood malignancy and traumatic and tuberculosis, brown in bili, milk in chylus, pus purulent cloudy in infected. So gross appearance, if we see here, straw colored normal seen in the cirrhosis or the tuberculosis, bloody fluid, malignancy, trauma, TB, peritonitis, pancreatitis, perforated viscous or traumatic tap, opaque or milky in the chylus ascites, dark brown biliary ascites or deep jaundice, black or tea color in the pancreatic ascites or the malignant melanoma. Cell count, cytology examination may reveal the malignant cells. 1/3 of the cirrhotic patient with a bloody tap have a hepatocellular carcinoma. Polymorphonuclear glycoside count of more than 250 strongly suggests the infection, spontaneous bacterial peritonitis. If you see over the right side of the table, the WBC count normally less than 250 per ml, and cells are predominantly the lymphocytic. Uncomplicated cirrhotic ascites, the WBC count is less than 500 and cells are less than 250 cells. SBP in cirrhotic ascites, the WBC count is more than 500 per ml and the cells are polymorphonuclear more than 250. In tuberculous ascites, the WBC count is high, cell is lymphocytic predominantly, and RBCs here, the more than 50,000 cells also in trauma and malignancy, you can see the RBCs. Protein, cirrhotic patient typically develop ascites with a low protein concentration known as the transudate and the protein concentration less than 25 gram per liter, or a high serum ascitic albumin gradient of more than 1.1 gram per deciliter suggests portal hypertension. High proteins ascites, also called as exudate, protein concentration is more than 25 gram per liter, or a low serum ascites albumin gradient of less than 1.1 gram per deciliter raises the possibility of infection, malignancy, pancreatic ascites, or rarely the hypothyroidism. So, SAG is calculated by subtracting the concentration of ascitic fluid albumin from the serum albumin. So here the same slide as we already discussed, the exudated versus transudated, the different causes. Gram staining and culture done on the ascites for bacteria and acid-fast bacilli. Amylase to exclude the pancreatic ascites, and triglycerides, if its level is more than 1.1 gram per liter, is diagnostic of the chylous ascites, and its appearance is milky white. So main difference between the exudated versus transudated, if we see the fluid analysis, the specific gravity in exudate is more than 1016, while the transudate is less than 1016. Protein is more than 3 gram and transudate less than 3. WBC is many and in transudate few and lymphocytic. RBCs, exudative variable RBCs, and transudate few RBCs are seen. Management of ascites, here you see the bed rest, salt restriction, fluid restriction, diuretics, therapeutic paracentesis, albumin may be given, peritoneo, venous shunt, tips, and transplantation. So treatment of transudative ascites is based on the restricting the sodium and water intake, promoting urine output with diuretics, and if necessary removing the ascites directly by paracentesis. During management of ascites, the patient should be weighed regularly, and diuretics should be titrated to remove no more than 1 liter of fluid daily. Body weight should not fall by more than 1 kilogram daily to avoid excessive fluid depletion. So in the management, the first is the bed rest alone will lead to a diuresis in a small proportion of the people by improving renal perfusion. Then sodium and water restriction. Restriction of the dietary sodium intake is essential to achieve the negative sodium balance. Restriction of the sodium intake to 100 millimole per 24 hours is usually adequate. Simply added the salt in the diet. Drugs containing relatively large amount of sodium and those promoting sodium retention such as NSAID must be avoided. Restriction of water intake to 1 to 1.5 liter per 24 hours is necessary only if the plasma sodium falls below 120 millimole per liter. Here this slide shows the drugs relatively high sodium content having the alginates, antacids, antibiotic, phenytoin. Effervescent preparation of aspirin, calcium and paracetamol and sodium valproate. Other is the sodium retention drug, that is the carbinoxolone, glucocorticoids, metclopramide, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs and estrogen. Then diuretics, spironolactone 100 to 400 mg per day is the first line drug, a powerful aldosterone antagonist. It can cause painful gynecomastia and hyperkalemia, in which case eplerenone 25 mg once daily does not cause gynecomastia. Some patients also require root diuretics such as furosemide. Patients who do not respond to the doses of 400 mg spironolactone and up to 160 mg furosemide are considered to have refractory or diuretic resistant ascites. Paracentesis, first line treatment of refractory ascites is large volume paracentesis. And paracentesis to dryness is safe provided circulation is supported with IV colloids such as human albumin 6 to 8 gram per liter of ascite is removed or another plasma expander. It can be used as an initial therapy or when other treatment fail. Transjugular intrahepatic portosystemic shunt consists of an intrahepatic stent inserted between one hepatic vein and the portal vein by a transjugular approach, as you see over the diagram over the right side. It can relieve resistant ascites but does not prolong life. It can be used in patients awaiting liver transplantation. It can aggravate encephalopathy in those with poor liver function. Peritoneovenous shunt. Here the ascitic fluid is shunted from the high pressure peritoneal cavity to the low pressure superior vena cava by Levine shunt, Denver shunt or Minnesota shunt. Use of a peritoneovenous shunt has been abandoned in most centers due to high rate of blockage. On the right side you see the Denver shunt, which is between the ascitic abdominal ascites and the superior vena cava. Complications of ascites are spontaneous bacterial peritonitis, hydrothorax, gastroesophageal reflux, respiratory distress and atelectasis due to elevation of the diaphragm, inguinal, umbilical, femoral hernia, scrotal edema, collection of fluid in the pleural sac, mesenteric venous thrombosis, functional renal failure. Prognosis: only 10 to 20% of the patients survive for 5 years from the first appearance of the ascites due to cirrhosis. The outlook is best in those with well-maintained liver function and a good response to therapy. It is also better when a treatable cause for underlying cirrhosis is present or when a precipitating cause for ascites such as excessive salt intake is found. Mortality at 1 year is 50% following the first episode of spontaneous bacterial peritonitis.